The gap is the distance between your inner identity and your outer expression, between your values, your ambition, your sense of humour, and the way you see the world, and how all of that is communicated to the world. But for so many women I work with, those two things don't match. That is the gap. So where does this gap come from? Welcome to the Reinvention Edit, the podcast for women who are ready to stop living in the old version of themselves and start showing up as who they are truly becoming. I'm your host, Claire Silk, confidence, identity and style coach, and someone who knows firsthand what it feels like to be in the messy middle between where I was and who I was becoming in my next chapter of life. Each week we explore identity, confidence and personal style, not as separate conversations but as one, because when those three things align, everything changes. Welcome back, and if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. Now, you might have noticed I've had a little makeover with the podcast. We have some new artwork on the cover, and I've renamed it the Reinvention Edit, Identity, Confidence and Style for the Woman Who is Ready for What's Next. I chose to do this because I feel it reflects you, the listener, a bit more than style and confidence. It focuses on more of the who rather than the what. This podcast, as it always has been, is still for ambitious women who are ready to stop holding themselves back and start showing up as the women they're becoming. And as always, I'll be talking about all things identity, confidence and style. I'd love to know what you think. One thing I hear back from my listeners repeatedly is how you think you're alone in how you feel. And often people will say, I didn't realise anyone else felt that way, or you felt heard and seen. It's so easy to think that it's just you and that everybody else somehow has worked out something that you haven't, and that the gap you feel is a flaw rather than something that can be addressed and that most people experience. So today I'm talking about the gap and exactly what to do about it. In this episode, I want to take you through something I work on with every single client from the very beginning, and this is the heart of what I do. It's something that confidence or style content on its own will completely miss. I'm talking about the gap between who you are and how you show up, where it comes from, why it matters, and most importantly, some practical steps that you can take today to begin closing it. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear understanding of why you might feel misaligned and 3 concrete things that you can do about it. Plus, I have so when I talk about the gap is the distance between your inner identity and your outer expression. Your inner identity being who you know yourself to be. So your values, your ambitions, your sense of humour, the way you see the world, the woman you are at your very best, when you're focused and energised and in flow. That version of you that your closest friends and family would describe without hesitation. Your outer expression is how all of that is communicated to the world through how you dress, how you carry yourself, the energy you bring into the room, the way you speak, and the presence that you hold. Now, ideally, those two things are aligned. Your outside reflects your inside. People meet you and they get an accurate sense of who you are, and you feel comfortable in your own skin, in your clothes, and in your own presence. But for so many of the women I work with, and honestly for me at different points of my life, those two things don't match. And it creates a friction and a dissonance. You might feel this as a low-level discomfort when you look in the mirror, a sense that what you see isn't quite you, not the you that you're searching for. You might feel it when you get dressed in the morning and nothing feels quite right. That age-old wardrobe full of clothes and nothing to wear. It's not the clothes that are the problem, it's just the clothes aren't right for who you are now. You might feel it when you walk into a meeting or a room full of people and you get that tight feeling in your tummy, like you're not quite ready to be seen. That's the gap, and it's extraordinarily common amongst ambitious, capable women. So where does this gap come from? Understanding the root cause of something is always the first step towards changing it. In my experience of working with women, the gap usually comes from one of 3 places, and often a combination of all 3. The first is identity transition. Life moves faster than our wardrobes do, and often faster than our self-perception. You might have changed careers, started a business, become a mother, come out of the other side of a relationship, or moved through your 30s or 40s into a new chapter of life. Any one of these things fundamentally shifts who you are. But the way you dress and the way you present yourself often lags behind. You're living a new version of your life in an old version of your image, and there's a dissonance in that. I see this a lot. Women who have grown enormously in confidence if they've taken on a new challenge and proved to themselves they can do it, which is wonderful. But their wardrobe still belongs to who they were 5 years ago, maybe before a promotion or before they've started a business or before they've come out the other side of a divorce. Their inside has moved on, but their outside hasn't quite caught up. The second route is a sort of borrowed identity. This is when, at some point in your life, you started dressing for someone else's approval or expectations rather than your own. It might have been a workplace culture that expected a certain look, a relationship that quietly shaped your choices, a mother or a sister or even a friend whose style you sort of absorbed without even realising. And often as well, social media showing you that a woman your age or in your industry looks a certain way, and without even realising, you take that on. Over time, you've built a wardrobe and a presentation that is technically yours, but you've been so heavily influenced by external expectations and influences that it's lost something essential. It's lost you. One woman I worked with recently described it to me as dressing in a costume. Everything she wore, she had chosen and loved at one point, but it didn't feel like her anymore. And she said she looked in the mirror and saw kind of what she wanted to see, but it felt empty. And the third route is a confidence lag. This is slightly different from the other two because it's not so much about the style, it's more about self-worth. The confidence lag is when your actual capability has grown significantly, but your internal belief system hasn't caught up. You're more skilled, more experienced, more qualified than you've ever been, but somewhere underneath that, there's still a voice telling you that you haven't quite earned the right to take up space and to present yourself as the woman that you actually are. This inner voice, as subtle as it is, shows up in every choice you make, including how you dress. You might choose dark colours because they're safe, dress in a lot of black to stay hidden and blend in, choose comfortable rather than powerful, and avoid the outfit that would make you visible because it feels risky. Does that sound familiar? If so, you're not doing anything wrong. This is an incredibly human response to growth, and it's something we can work with. Often when we talk about style and presentation and the way that we present ourselves, people might think this is a bit superficial, but it really isn't. There are decades of psychological research that tell us the relationship between how we dress and how we feel is bidirectional. It doesn't just go one way. Confident people might feel confident in what they're wearing. And also, dressing intentionally actively shapes your confidence. There's a concept called enclosed cognition. The idea, which I've spoken about before, the idea that the clothes we wear affect our psychological processes. When you put on an outfit that feels powerful, your physiology actually changes. Your posture shifts, your cortisol levels drop slightly, and your brain associates the clothing with the identity and symbolic meaning that you have attached to it and starts behaving accordingly. This is why getting dressed intentionally matters. Not because it's superficial, but because it's one of the simplest, most immediate tools you have to influence how you feel and how you show up. So when the gap is open, when your outside doesn't match your inside, it works against you in both directions. You feel the friction internally, and then you communicate the misalignment externally. People don't get an accurate read of who you are at all. And opportunities pass to women who are less qualified but more visibly confident. I know I've experienced it when I've watched somebody less qualified than me and less experienced than me get the visibility and the recognition that I really wanted. And that stings a little. So, how do we start closing the gap? I have 3 steps. These are the same 3 things I work through with clients at the start of our time together. Before you can close the gap, you need to know what you're moving towards. This means getting very clear on who you are right now. Not who you were and not who you think you should be, but who you actually are right now in this chapter of your life. What are your values? What matters to you? What do you want people to feel when they meet you? And what does the most confident, visible, aligned version of you look like? I want you to get specific. If you had a photograph of yourself at your most confident, your most you, what would you be wearing? Where would you be? And how would you be standing? You don't need to have all the answers right now. Just start asking the questions, and that way you can put some intention behind your style. So a practical action for this first step this week is to write 3 sentences that begin with I am. So not aspirational statements, true ones, things you know to be real about who you are right now. And then ask yourself, does the way I currently present myself reflect these 3 things? And then notice where there's alignment and notice where there's a gap. So step 2, now we go to your wardrobe. Not to throw everything out that's not quite right anymore. We just want to have a look at this stage. So try on 5 things that you wear really regularly. And as you put on each piece, ask yourself 2 questions. So first question, does this feel like me? Don't think about whether it's appropriate or practical. Just focus on, does this feel like the woman I am right now? And then the second question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel in this? And if anything scores below a 7, put it to one side. You don't have to get rid of it today, but think about why it's less than a 7 and notice how much of your wardrobe is below a 7. Because that tells you something quite important. You can't dress for the woman you're becoming if your wardrobe is full of the woman that you used to be, or the woman that other people expect you to be. You deserve a wardrobe that works for you now. That makes you feel like an 8, a 9, or a 10 most of the time. So your action for this step is to try on 5 items this week. Rate each one out of 10 for how aligned they feel with who you are right now. And then note which pieces score below a 7. These are indications of where your gap is. You don't need to act on this just yet. If you don't want to, just notice. And then step 3, choose one day this week to dress intentionally. Don't dress for comfort, although it is important that you are comfortable, and don't dress out of habit. Don't just grab what you always wear because that's what you always wear. Dress as a deliberate act of showing up as the woman that you are becoming. It doesn't have to be dramatic, and it doesn't have to be a whole new outfit that you've never worn before. It might be wearing a dress that you've been saving for a special occasion, only putting it on a Thursday. It might be putting on earrings if you don't always. It might be choosing a colour that you love but you always talk yourself out of. And it might be choosing the version of the outfit that makes you feel visible rather than the version that makes you feel quite safe. Now you want to feel visible and good, not visible and self-conscious, but visible nonetheless. And then notice what happens. Notice how you feel in your body. Notice whether or not you stand differently or speak differently. And then as you move through your day, do you make decisions differently? Are you more productive? Are you behaving in a more confident way? And do other people comment? From working with all the women I've worked with, this one small act of intentional dressing has such a ripple effect that goes far beyond the outfit. It sends a message to your brain, to your body, and to the world, saying, I'm ready, I'm here, and it's powerful. So your action for step 3 is to choose one day this week, tomorrow, why not, and dress intentionally. Pick the version of your outfit that makes you feel like an 8, 9, or 10 and wear it all day. And then write down 3 words to describe how you felt that way. Keep this somewhere you can return to. So as we get to the end of this episode, I will bring it together. We've talked about the gap, the distance between your inner identity and how you are expressing yourself outwardly. And I've talked about where it tends to come from: identity transition, borrowed identity, or a confidence lag, and often a combination. And I've talked about why the gap matters. Not because appearance is everything, it's not superficial. And the research is clear. How you present yourself shapes how you feel and how other people perceive you. And how you feel shapes every decision you make and every opportunity you either step into or step away from. Our behaviour comes from our feelings. And then I worked through 3 things that you can start doing right now. Be honest about who you're becoming. Really think through it in detail. And write down your I am statements. Audit your wardrobe with the 7 out of 10 filter and put to a side and notice everything that scores less than 7 out of 10. And then dress intentionally for one day this week. Make sure that your outfit is a 8, 9, or 10 and notice what changes in the way that you feel and behave that day. The gap closes one conscious choice at a time, and every single choice that you make to show up more fully as yourself matters more than you know. These are small actions, but they are not insignificant. They are the beginning of you stepping fully into your next chapter. The gap is much easier to close when you understand your instinctive way of expressing yourself, who you actually are, your natural style identity, the archetype that reflects who you are, at your most authentic, and your psychological patterns. Some women are naturally expressive and drawn to colour and texture and bold expression. Others are more classic and feel most themselves in clean lines and timeless elegance. And then some are very feminine and romantic. Others are powerful and architectural. And most of us are a beautiful blend of 2 or 3. Knowing your archetype doesn't just give you a prescription. It gives you an anchor, a language for understanding what feels like you and what doesn't. And You can return to this when shopping, when building an outfit, and if you are wearing something that doesn't feel quite like you can return to this and perhaps understand where you veered off. It's quite grounding. My signature presence archetype quiz will help you discover exactly this. It doesn't take long and it's good fun. And at the end, you'll get a personalised result that tells you your dominant presence archetype and what that means for your style and your confidence and your identity. And then some simple next steps. So many women have taken it and enjoyed it and found it to be quite eye-opening. Real self-awareness is always a really powerful step towards making a change of any sort. And in this case, a really powerful thing you can do to start closing the gap. You can find the quiz on my website, clairesilk.com, and I'll leave the link in the show note. Take it today and share it with a woman who might need it too. And if you do take it, I would absolutely love to know your result. You can DM me on Instagram or email me and let me know. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Reinvention Edit. If today's episode spoke to you, let me know and please rate, review and subscribe. If you know a woman in your life who's in the middle of her own reinvention or evolution, please share this with her. It might be exactly what she needs to hear. You can find me on Instagram at Silk Style and Confidence and LinkedIn as Claire Silk. And if you're ready to work together, you can find out more on my website, clairesilk.com. Remember, confidence is built on the inside, style helps it shine.